Thank you for taking the time today, John, for joining us here on the roof of IKEA Marsden Park on a bright sunny day amongst a lot of solar panels to talk about climate change and renewable energy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
John,
Mm.
how have you seen sustainability be interrupted by COVID-19?
It's definitely interrupted things. If you look at the sustainability movement, I know a few sustainability experts that personally caught COVID and they're still recovering. The sustainability organizations, many of them have lost funding sources, whilst companies figure out how they're going to be affected by COVID. They're holding off on funding sustainability initiatives. I'm also seeing quite a few companies that are delaying sustainability decisions as well, whilst they see how COVID pans out. On the upside, I always prefer to look at positives in life. People have now got to see what cities look like when we have significantly reduced pollution from vehicles. And so we've had a glimpse at what the world is going to look like when we all have electric cars, electric taxis, and electric buses. We're going to have a lot less air pollution. We're going to have a lot less noise pollution. So that's been one good thing. It's kind of shown people what the future could look like there. I think the other issue too is that COVID has shown us what happens when business as usual gets totally turned on its head. And someone said to me, in some ways, could we treat this almost like a rehearsal for what's going to happen when climate change really hits? And so I think there's a great opportunity in trying to get out of the economic impact of COVID is looking at putting in place solutions that reduce the impact of climate change. It's the perfect time, a perfect opportunity to start putting funding in for a cleaner economy. And by investing in that, we create new jobs, create new innovation, create new economic opportunities that will minimize the impact of COVID and also minimize the impacts of climate change at the same time.
I like what you said in terms of how businesses have reflected about what the world could look like as amongst a lot of countries we're in lockdown. Because I think, again, if you look at basically how our environment has changed, how nature has changed, based to everybody being inside, that's what we want to achieve amongst us still living our daily lives. So, what are some of the solutions and ways to do that? I think, again, like you said, if we continue to invest and continue to move the agenda forward and not retract and try to look for another alternate solution or get confused or confusion, but how do we keep moving it forward? Because we could see it, as you said, a rehearsal of what it
Mm.
can be if we just really, again, work together and look at innovative ways on how to achieve that.
Without a doubt. The good news here, of course, is that for every problem that we have in the world, for every problem that businesses face when it comes to sustainability, the solutions are already there, or they're very close to being there. And there's absolutely no reason now why we can't use this opportunity of needing to reboot the economy to reboot it in a cleaner, more sustainable way.
There's so much talk in the world today around green deals and
Mm.
green recovery. What is your thoughts around that?
To me, it's really common sense. If you look back to the Great Depression in the late 20s, early 30s in America, President Roosevelt came up with what was called the New Deal. And that project really helped America to get back on its feet economically. And if you look at what's happening with COVID, people are talking about having a greener New Deal, a new version of that. And that makes a lot of sense. Here in Australia, there's a great organization called Beyond Zero Emissions. They've come up with the Million Jobs Plan. And it's a way of looking at how do we have climate change solutions that we can put in place in our economy. So we use renewable energy, we use cleaner production to create new opportunities and new jobs. And I think that's really important. If you think about the number of solar farms and wind farms we could build, the offshore wind that we could build, if you look at the social housing that we need to build in this country, you could keep building social housing and just keep going. There's a huge opportunity for that and a big need for it. And then while you're there, let's put solar and all the other housing that hasn't yet got it, and that will save people money. The solar farms and the wind farms will also save businesses money as well. If you look at China, where they've got so many electric buses, well, we could do the same thing over here. And so it's really worth looking at the Beyond Zero Emissions Million Jobs Plan because it offers huge opportunities for businesses to restart key parts of the economy, create new jobs. So there's three benefits. You get the social benefits of new jobs and a more resilient economy. You get the economic benefits of rebooting the economy in a greener, cleaner way. And by doing that, you get the environmental benefit of taking really positive action to reduce the potential impacts of climate change.
I like how you mentioned it because we have something similar in IKEA, such as our People and Planet Positive strategy,
Mm,
where we're looking at the benefits from an
mm,
environmental, economic, and social impact. So,
mm,
looking at this, it falls in line with that. And that's something that we also wanted to bring to light as to post COVID or
mm,
through this transition, so many people have lost their jobs. And
mm,
what is the plan or the strategy going forward to reinstate employment,
mm.
especially such towards projects that can help the environment but also stimulate the economy? So that's a great example that you shared just now. So, John, how can business work with government to challenge some of these big changes that's happening within climate change? And how can business act as an agent to support the changes that need to happen?
The good news here is that businesses have really been getting on with it when it comes to sustainability, especially really big global businesses. Where we're seeing governments not taking leadership on sustainability issues, we are seeing businesses stepping up in their place. A good example of that, I think, is RE100. And IKEA were one of the co-founders of the RE100 initiative. The idea behind that is to get major companies to commit to going 100% renewable with their electricity use by a set date. On that side, we've now got 255 major companies who've pledged to go 100% renewable. And in fact, over 40 of those companies have already reached that 100% renewable target. But I think where it works best is where governments provide a policy framework for businesses to step in and do their bit. And a really good example of that is the Conservative governments in the United Kingdom. They've been looking at the North Sea oil and gas industry. Obviously, that's going to run out at some point, but you've got a lot of people in their economy focused on fulfilling that role of getting oil and gas out there. So what they've done is they came up with an offshore wind policy to basically get huge numbers of very, very large turbines that are out at sea. A lot of people at the start said that's madness, it's going to be way too expensive, it doesn't make financial sense. But as they've gone and increased the amount of turbines that are out there, businesses have come up with even more bigger, more efficient wind turbines, and just one turbine alone can power 10 to 15,000 households every single day. When you start putting hundreds and eventually thousands and tens of thousands of these turbines out there, we're seeing a really big benefit for the economy. It's creating jobs, it's great for the local and national economy, and the best thing of all, it's tackling climate change and at the same time putting genuine downward pressure on power prices. And all the research shows that they're going to quite dramatically reduce the cost of electricity in the UK. And that's a win-win situation. So you see governments providing good policy framework, businesses will step in, they will put the investment, they will come up with the innovative new solutions that can create the answers we need to see when it comes to implementing sustainability.
I'm so happy you use that as an example because working within IKEA, I think regardless if you're a national company or an international company,
Mm,
a lot of the barriers is like what you mentioned, unless it comes from a federal
mm,
policy where we're all looking at the same agenda and we're all trying to move it the same way, you get these inconsistencies as to what
mm.
is the focus either by state or by territory, etc. And then it seems to be very disjointed as to how to move the agenda when everyone's focusing on different things.
Mm. Look, I think it's an interesting point you make because a lot of really big global companies that I know, they're big enough where they can look at their own impacts. They can then look at their supply chain and how that supply chain is feeding into their business. And then if you really sit down and take a look at it, you don't need government direction to do best practice within your own business because energy efficiency is going to save you money. Materials efficiency is going to save you money. Having more renewable forms of supply means that in the event of climate change, you've got a more secure supply chain. That makes business sense. And of course, if you're using renewable energy, both in your company and in your supply chain, then you can start offering goods and services that have zero carbon or very low carbon impacts on the environment. And so that, I think, is what's really important. We don't have to wait for government, but we do need to ensure that government gets out of the way. Because, if you look here in Australia, the federal government has really been holding people back, from implementing change. A good example is AGL and Liddell Power Station. Now, they want to shut down that coal-fired power station, and the federal government put a lot of pressure on them to keep that open and to keep using coal. But they've come back very clearly and said, well, actually, we want to switch the entire thing over to renewables and a huge amount of battery storage. For the grid, cleaning up the grid, putting genuine pressure downwards on electricity prices, it's the only way to go. So in that situation, that's a good example of government needing to get out of the way and just let business get on with creating this cleaner economy.
Great story. And it's great to hear so much about that technology and how we can conserve our energy and water in a better way because, of course, in Australia, with the geography and where the people who need energy and water is so diverse, it would be good if we can actually more move that towards an efficient way as to when do we need it and where do we need it and be able to control it in a better way.
The technology is definitely there now in a way that it wasn't there 5 years ago. When Mike Cannon-Brookes first challenged Elon Musk over the battery for South Australia, so many people in the press that have been misleading us on renewables were saying, there's no way that will work. What a stupid idea. And of course, good old Elon Musk just made it happen, got it there on time, on schedule, on budget. And it's actually been making a large amount of money. It's been helping the grid in an enormous way in South Australia. And the good thing is, it proved that if batteries are now at that level where we can incorporate them into the grid, and the batteries are only getting cheaper and better. So it's an exciting time to be in the renewable space for sure.
Absolutely. Jon, you have a particular interest in cleaner transportation. And what changes do you see happening when it comes to transportation and logistics over the next 10 to 20 years?
I don't think most people realize how fast that change is going to be. If you look at Norway, for example, last month, 2/3 of the new cars that were sold were electric cars. They're already well on the way to that transition. If you look at buses with China, they now have 400,000 electric buses just in China alone. And that undoubtedly that change will be happening worldwide, very soon. If you look at taxis, the London black cabs now, they don't make diesel versions of that now. They're making electric versions instead. Uber and Lyft have also committed to go 100% towards electric cars as well. I think with delivery, it's going to be very interesting. You at IKEA, by 2025, you are going to have zero emission delivery vehicles, which is very exciting. But DHL and Amazon, they're also investing a very, very large sum of money into electric delivery vehicles. And what excites me about delivery is you've got new technology being used too. So you'll have battery-powered drones that will deliver products. Amazon is testing that. You've got in Milton Keynes, Starship currently have delivery robots that again are battery-powered and have zero emissions. But what excites me most, I think, is the air taxis. So you have Uber are actively developing taxis that literally take off, vertically and go very fast. And there's actually a lot of companies developing technology for this. So, very low noise because they're basically electric air taxis. You have no congestion issues. And on that whole issue of flight, we're also now starting to see the rollout of the first electric aircraft. And so at this stage, they're quite small, but I think within a short period of time, we can easily expect to have planes with 100 people that are going to be electric aircraft. And I think the potential for direct air capture, where you suck carbon pollution out of the air, mix it with hydrogen, come up with syngas and turn that into jet fuel, that is one way in which we can potentially power flights from Sydney to London in a way that environmentally is not damaging. They've been able to do that in the lab. The trick now is to try and ramp that up and put it into the mainstream.
So a lot of cleaner ways to transport yourself or logistics is worldwide going forward. So it sounds like a great next 10 to 20 years that we have in front of us.
And the great thing, of course, is that going electric means that you save money. If you look at the 400,000 buses in China, that saves money. If you look at the DHL did some work on this they've got a big electric delivery fleet. The costs of maintenance and recharging is dramatically cheaper than with diesel or petrol cars. So it doesn't just make environmental sense, it doesn't just reduce noise pollution, it's reducing air pollution as well and saving money at the same time.
You've been talking a lot in the media about circular economy.
Mm.
Can you share with us some good examples of companies who have a circular economy approach?
The circular economy is undoubtedly one of the most exciting things to happen in the business sector for many years. Let's begin with you guys. You've got the Koonsbakker kitchen. What I like about this is it uses recycled bottles, plastic bottles. It uses recycled wood. But when you install that kitchen, you cannot tell that it's made using recycled ingredients. And that's a really exciting outcome. If you look at McDonald's in America, they generate about 28,000 tons of coffee chaff waste. That's the outer skin when the waste that's left after you roast the beans. So they're now sending that waste to the Ford Motor Company. The Ford Motor Company then mix that waste with plastic and use it for car parts. And that's working really, really well as a project. And the final one, which I really like, food waste is a major issue. And here in Australia, there's a company called GoTerra. And what they do is they basically will install a unit, usually less than a shipping container size. It's full of very, very hungry fly maggots. And you have the fly maggots in there for 12 days. Every single day, they're eating about 5 tons of food waste that otherwise would go to landfill and put out all this methane greenhouse gas. They eat it, and at the end of 12 days, you basically nicely kill the maggots and you turn them into animal protein. And then you basically feed that to chickens, or you can feed it to fish on a fish farm. There's many other uses for insect protein. But what's good about that is you get a second use out of the food that previously was a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and a contributor to climate change. The great thing about all of these kind of circular economy solutions is inevitably you're saving money. You can save money on waste costs, you can save money on your raw materials, you're reducing the amount of energy that's needed to create products and services. And the great thing about it is environmentally, with the number of billions of people that we have on this planet right now, and by 2050 we're going to have nearly 10 billion people. We need to find every way we can to do a lot more with a lot less. And businesses can help us with that by implementing those kind of circular economy solutions in their day-to-day business.
It's great to hear so many other businesses are also working with the same kind of approach and some of the ideas and collaborations that's coming out of it.
The great thing about the circular economy is it just makes sense. When you're going to have nearly 10 billion people by 2050, they're all going to be eating food, they all need to be clothed, they all need to be housed, they all rightly want a higher standard of living than many countries have been used to. And so if we're going to do that, we've only got one planet, we've only got so many resources to go around. So by taking a circular approach and doing a lot more with a lot less, it makes sense for the economy. It certainly makes sense for the planet because we've only got one planet's worth of resources. And at the same time, it'll be really good for the economy too.
So, what is the most exciting new project that you've seen, basically, in terms of tackling climate change?
Oh, the most exciting project right now in Australia is Sun Cable. It's an initiative that involves two well-known billionaires in Australia, Mike Cannon-Brookes and Andrew Forrest. The plan is to build the world's largest solar farm, send that power to Darwin so you can power Darwin with renewable energy, store it in huge batteries, and then send that power 4,500 kilometers underwater to Singapore and provide that city-state with 20 to 25% of its power. Now, if we make that work, then you can get the power to Singapore, you can also get that power to Indonesia and to other countries as well. And then we can turn Australia into a renewable energy exporter and become a renewable energy superpower. The world is already used to getting energy from us through our coal and through our LNG. We need to now start giving them renewable energy as well.
Thank you, John, so much for today and all those wonderful insights that you've shared with us about what's happening in Australia, but also what is happening around the world. And again, how we could take a further step in keeping this in the agenda. It doesn't matter what pandemic or what natural disaster happens. how do we keep moving forward? So thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me.